Good morning, and hello. How are you? Welcome to the Watch Dad podcast. I'm Brandon McElroy, your host. Super excited to have you here. This is season 2, and this season has been phenomenal. We had a great amount of dads. We've talked about a lot of good stuff, but today I've got a good friend of mine, somebody I've known for like a better part of 15 years, I think, at this point. And excited to have you here and talk to you a little bit. Welcome to the podcast, Mr. Zach Klein.
Thank you for having me.
I'm
excited to be here.
Listen, city attorney right here. So I got to make sure I'm on my P's and Q's today. But no, super excited to have you here. And, tell me a little bit about you. Who is Zach Klein? For the folks that have never met you.
Well, I'm a kid from southeastern Ohio.
Okay.
That a lot of folks in Columbus find their way to Columbus, and I'm one of them.
Yeah.
Call Columbus my home. But I went to Belpre High School, this little town in southeastern Ohio, about 5,000 people, right across the river from Parkersburg, West Virginia.
Nice.
We shared 2 bridges with Parkersburg.
Okay.
One was the free bridge, and one was the pay bridge. But it was like that type of community where sports were a big part of life. You had to show up to the JV game in order to see the varsity game. It was like that was the big gig in town.
Yeah.
When Parkersburg got an Outback Steakhouse, we were all excited for not only the Bloomin' Onion, but we had a place to go for prom.
Nice.
So we thought we were living large.
There you go.
Between that and the Mexican restaurant Don Emilio's, we were pretty excited.
That's awesome.
But it was a great place to grow up. My dad, we moved several times because my dad built power plants for a living.
Really?
And so at the time, it took, I guess, 4 years to build a power plant. And so we moved almost every 4 years and kind of ended up in Belpre. My dad worked for AEP. There's a plant near there.
Okay.
And then as I was, going into 8th grade, going into high school, he moved into a different role to stop the moving because my brother's 5 years younger, and he's like, we wanted to settle down. So, my brother and I always say, we won the parents' lottery because my parents, they sacrificed everything for my brother and I. They gave us everything that we ever wanted. My mom was a teacher, worked at the local school, and my dad worked at the power plant. We were just so fortunate to just live a great life where our parents put us at the center and volunteered at the school, ran the shoot the hoop where if you make the half court shot, you split the bucket sort of thing.
Nice.
With, you make $75 cash.
Hey, that's living
if
large.
you have to repair the track, she ran my mom, did a lot of work to sell tickets for the raffle to, so they could raise money to repair the track at the school. So it was very, very school focused, but ended up, leaving Belpre and going to, ended up graduating from Ohio State. And then Capital Law School and clerked for a couple federal judges when I graduated, then got involved in campaigns and politics and ended up working for a guy named Rich Cordray, who was a statewide elected official at the time. And long story short, ended up working at the White House for then Vice President Biden, and then a member of city council and council president and city attorney. I've been very fortunate every step of the way to have people like you supporting me and working in the community together to get stuff done for the city of Columbus.
Absolutely. No, I have been able to watch you from afar and working partner with you on different initiatives throughout. And it's just amazing to see just the person that you are as a human being. And I think that's, as a father, not only just as a father, but even as someone that's in the public eye all the time, we miss that part, right? We miss that you're a kid from a small town in Ohio, right? You're not just this figure that's on TV or on a post that's going through, but truly a father and somebody that is dealing with the everyday life that the rest of us are dealing
with no blueprint like the rest of us. You just put your head down and go through.
That's it.
I have 2 wonderful children, wonderful wife. My kids are in 6th grade. My daughter Stella, she's 12, and my son Rocco is 10. He's in 4th grade. They have Italian first names. My wife's maiden name, and actually current name because she didn't change it, is Persichetti.
Okay.
She said Klein was boring, so the kids had to have an Italian first name to represent the Persichetti, last name. So we jokingly, it's Stella Klein. It's like this great Rocco Klein. So it's a letdown. It's a letdown.
Yeah.
But they're just wonderful kids. And being a dad is it changes your your life for the better. So you get people that are like, oh, I'm going to have my first kid. Like, well, tell me what advice. I was like, what changes your life for the better?
Yeah.
It completely changes everything.
Everything.
But like being a dad is my number one thing. And as you know, like, especially the work that you do in the community, and it's no different in like my position or other people that are involved in their church or in their community, in their neighborhood, is that like at some point you have to prioritize stuff, and people get mad if you don't prioritize. But like at the end of the day, being a dad is my number one thing.
Yeah.
If I lose election or re-election because I'm a dad, that's fine.
Yeah.
That's something I'm willing to sacrifice because being a dad is my number one thing. That's what my parents' blueprint was for me. It's what my blueprint is for my kids. Now, does that mean that I don't miss things? Of course it means that I miss things. Right. But like when push comes to shove, I prioritize my children and my family.
No, that's awesome to hear. And I think, again, like you mentioned before, so many folks kind of see this image and they kind of imagine that, oh, well, everything is there and they just kind of dismiss. But it's funny because I've had the opportunity to say, I remember when you all were pregnant with Rocco, like back in the day, and seeing you like out and working with the community and still being a very dedicated dad to Stella, and she's at events and she's with you and moving. How does public life shape fatherhood for them? Like how does Stella view you today, now that she's much bigger than what she was back then?
It's through a couple different lenses. There's the lens at school that their kids are like, I saw your dad on TV, so there's like this, I don't want this because you're on TV somehow like you're this big deal, which you're not. You just happen to be on the news. Typically not good. But it's like, I saw your dad on TV, and so like there's this that notion within the class dynamic. But then there's also the idea of like you got to come with me to these events. So they get I think a good education about at an early age about the city, about the importance of civic engagement, the importance of politics, the importance of government. And so like that through that lens, it's also really important too. Now they're a little bit older, as 10 and 12, you can kind of pop in and out. You don't have to take them everywhere, but at 6, 7, 8 year old, you just can't leave them on their own.
Very true.
But as they're able to get a little older, I guess they don't have to come with me, but I'm going to encourage them and make them come to some things because I think it's part of our civic education to get involved in the community and understand like what I do, what other people do, what you do in the community. And I say this a lot especially when I'm talking to police, is that like we're all public servants. Like you don't have to be an elected official to serve the community. You don't. A police officer serves the community in different capacity. You serve the community in different capacity. So I want my kids to see like you don't just have to like be what I do or what the mayor does or a city council member does. Like you can go and get involved in a block watch or a civic association or involved in your church, involved in your school, like my parents did, and you can really make a difference. So instilling that early, I think, is part of my parental responsibility, just so they become good citizens of the world.
Right. Do you look at any aspect of your space today as a dad and say, man, I wish I could have changed that for them? Like, is there any space, living in the city, growing up in the city, we all, well, for them at least, growing up in the city, like we all kind of have that moment of like, as a father, I want the best for my kid. Is there anything that you would say you wish was a little different or that you're maybe working towards even in your role today?
Well, so from the city standpoint, always like, how do we build like strong, connected and safe communities, how, and have our kids go to good schools, so they have a chance to succeed. I will say like in just the timing of this podcast is interesting that with all of the chaos in Washington, there's so much like uncertainty and people being scared, and rightfully so, about the level of uncertainty and what is, I think, naturally scary coming out of Washington. And you take a step back and you're like, how is this America good for my kids? In this direction that we're going on, how can my kids or our families, not just my kids, but our families, how can they really succeed in an America that's shrinking in the world, where the idea of us versus them is growing, where people are becoming more exclusive instead of inclusive, where we're not loving our neighbor where we should be. And that, I think, for any parent is scary, because we want to, the goal is to leave it better for our children, not just financially, but in a better world, a healthier community, a safer community, a better America. And I think that is becoming an increasingly like really hard challenge when you see what's going on in Washington, D.C., and you're trying to figure out how can I make a difference personally to push back against that. but then how can I make a difference for my kids and for other kids for the next generation?
Absolutely. No, that's a really good point. Which actually takes me to a question. I'm a dad in the city of Columbus. What do I do? Like, I know you said, get involved in church. I know you said get involved in civic, but politics sometimes is scary, right? Mm-hmm. Like, if we're just honest, like sometimes I just don't know. I'm not educated to what it is. What in your purview as a father is something that you would recommend for someone to jump into, or a young father that's looking at, next steps for their kid? Like, what would that be?
You don't have to be involved in politics. Okay. Like, you don't have to to do the BS with you don't need to be involved. If you want to be great, but like there's so many opportunities to be involved in various aspects of the city or your neighborhood or your school that the possibilities are endless. And if you have the desire to be involved and you want to be part of the solution, whether that's at the very granular block watch, neighborhood watch level, or the area commission level, your church, your school, or perhaps it's serving on a city board or commission or running for office or anything in between that we haven't mentioned. There's plenty of opportunities for people that have the thirst to make a difference, that want to make their community better for their kids. And I would really encourage a dad out there that wants to do that to just rip off the Band-Aid and do it. Try it. If you don't like it, find something else. Mm-hmm. But there's plenty of opportunities out there. Like you don't have to have the sickness of politics in order to make a difference, because it is scary and daunting, and there's a lot of BS associated with it. But thankfully, it's not the only solution that's out there.
Sure.
I look at my parents. Like, we didn't really talk much about politics growing up. Politics wasn't a big part of our life, but community service was. Mm-hmm. Our school was. Getting involved in the community was. Yeah. And that's the way I think that you can take that model and apply it to your own life, even if it's an hour a week, to find something in your kid's school, to find something in your church or in your neighborhood to make a difference.
No, that's a good way to put it.
The possibilities are there.
Yeah, mm-hmm. Fair. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I think that's the part, right? Is like, how do I dive in what matters most to me, right? I think about myself, and my initial engagement in the political space and community space was all about my dad, honestly. Mm-hmm. He would often come home, on the south side of the city, and he's like, man, they're changing this, or this is happening, this is moving. And I'm like, Dad, what can we do about it? Like, how do we get involved in it? How do we go? And he's like, I don't know if that's, for me. And so for myself as an individual, I was like, I need to get in there, right? Like, let me do it.
And you're a great example about like getting involved macularly in the city level, but also kind of very granularly in your neighborhood. Yeah. And I think it's something like National Night Out. Yeah. And it's something as simple as turning on your porch light, throwing some burgers on the grill, bringing people together that you're neighbors that maybe you don't talk to very much. Yep. Like that sense of safety and community amongst your neighbors, I think is underrated. Yeah. Like there's a big opportunity there for folks to get involved in just even their neighborhood mm-hmm. level. Like who are your neighbors 5 streets down, 5 streets over, and then, or five houses down, 5 houses over, and then across. Yeah. And like, how do you knock on their doors, get to know them, and look out for one another, so that if your kids are playing on the street, mm-hmm. like that goes a long way. Yeah. And that's simple. That's like right in your, like literally your own backyard.
Yeah, absolutely. I think people today have gotten so far away from, I want to know my neighbor, right? Mm-hmm. We like go in, you open the garage, you pull in, you close the garage, mm-hmm. right? And you're like in my own little bubble and go. But it's interesting. One of the things that a lot of the fathers that have come on the show have said is we don't talk to each other enough, mm-mm. right? We don't have enough conversation. We don't go through just, how are you today? Not city attorney, but hey, Zach Klein, how you doing today, Zach? Mm-hmm. How are things going? How are the kids? Being able to relate to one another is community, right? Mm-hmm. That's that sense of I care about you more than just, did you cut your grass this week, or I'm calling 311, right? Like, but truly caring about what's happening in your world and what's going forward from there. So as a dad, when you look out at just your role and your position, what is the main thing that you try to focus on? Like, I know you said, making it better for your kids, but are there any specific things that if you achieve it by the time you're done in whichever role that you have, mm-hmm. you feel like I did this for my kids? Is there something out there that in your mind is there?
Well, so with what I have my purview in the city attorney's office, how can we improve community safety? We're part of my team are prosecutors. Part of like some of my team represent the police department as their lawyer. Mm-hmm. we try to guide them and offer advice, but as with any lawyer, it's just advice. I'm not in charge.
Right.
And having a safe community where kids feel like they can be themselves and thrive, and at the same time have equal opportunity to succeed, the combination of that, that really creates a sky the limit attitude for our children.
Yeah.
And if you don't have a safe neighborhood where kids can go out and be kids and meet with other kids, or if parents don't feel comfortable having their kids go outside and they're cloistered inside their home the entire time, that's not a thriving atmosphere for kids to succeed at any age.
Yeah.
And so at the basis of any successful city is public safety.
Yeah.
Now that you dovetail that with some of the challenges that we have with Columbus City schools, I think we have to be realistic about that. And what opportunities are kids having in order to, be able to graduate and have minimal academic standards, reading, writing, arithmetic, to be able to succeed in the workforce, to get a job, to go to the military, to go to college, go to vocational school, trades, whatever it is, but they're hitting the ground running. And so it's like, what is that educational opportunity that is giving them the skills they need, but also the neighborhoods they live in so that they can succeed. And the combination of those, I think, is what I see success of the city of Columbus, at its most basis, are those two opportunities for our children.
Yeah, no, that's fair. That's a fair call out. From a dad's perspective, what do you think we as fathers are missing today? Is there something that you would call out that I wish we as fathers would do a little better or do a little more of?
Well, every time I see a kid on their phone, I want father to take it away and throw it in the river.
That's fair.
I mean, I really do. I think social media is really the downfall of society in some way, and it's really ruining our kids.
Yeah.
You look at just depression rates among women, among girls, and then kids with especially boys with video games, not to stereotype, but that's primarily where they focus.
Yeah.
It is a big deal that's causing a crisis. And so we as parents and as dads, I think, have to be even more aggressive and really cut against the grain to say, listen, son or daughter, your friends may have a phone and social media, but you're not going to get one. I love you.
Right.
But I think sometimes it's easy to let the phone babysit. You're out to dinner. You're like, oh, I just want to have a beer and enjoy dinner.
Yeah.
And so here's the phone. Go play with it. You know. But being engaged with our children and not using social media or entertainment or a phone as a crutch. Yeah. It's hard. It's hard. I'm not trying to say what are you doing? I'm not criticizing. It's hard. I fall into the trap myself. Yeah. But that is something that I think can be, could really make a difference in kids' lives. And then second to that is just this notion of this idea of masculinity. And it's okay to love your kid.
Yeah.
It's okay to give them a hug. It's okay to hold their hand, boy or girl, at any age. Yeah. And how do you just break down the barriers there of being able to say to your children that you love them in public in front of other people, and think that that's okay, because it is. Yeah. And you should do that.
Yeah. No, that's actually a really good point, because I think a lot of folks today kind of shy away from any type of affection really with their child. It's almost like this, oh, I don't want to break down this space, or I don't make them look weak, or myself look weak in front of them, and those types of things. It's an interesting kind of purview to say, hey, it's okay, right? And it shouldn't be that way, right? We should naturally want to love on our kid and go. And I can think of some fathers growing up where you would see them give that, that love and that passion to their child, and you'd almost be like, oh, wow, that's interesting. That doesn't happen often. But to your point, it's good for us to really step out and say, hey, I love you. You're doing a great job. You're on the soccer field or whatever, versus yelling at them for, be the best one out there.
Or thinking that you can only say that you love them or give them a hug at home when no one else is around. That's because it's not cool, and breaking down that barrier, I think also could go a long way. It doesn't matter. You can do it in public. It's okay. They're your kids.
Yeah. absolutely. Does Stella still let you give her a hug before?
Yeah. Oh, some days.
Listen, I drop Lauren off in the morning. I'm like, can I have a hug? No, okay. Bye. See you later.
Yeah.
No, that's
I'm going to try.
Yeah, I'm going to go in for one. Good job. All right, keep going.
It's like that awkward hug, a high five, and then that's just her back and she's walking away.
Yeah, okay. She's gone. All right, moving on. No, that's fair. That's awesome. That's awesome. When you look at yourself today and you think of the dad that you are, is there a piece of advice that was given to you back before, either before you had a kid or while you had your two, that you would say is key to your success as a father?
I always think about my parents. I know I don't want to keep going back to that, but it was very influential. Yeah. And, my dad died a couple years ago and it was devastating to our family. And he's still a missing piece of our family puzzle because we were a very tight family. Because when I say that my brother and I, our parents sacrificed everything, they sacrificed everything for us. And I'll say maybe even on too much.
Yeah.
They in the sense that I don't think they ever went on a vacation together, just them two.
Really?
Ever. That's on the unhealthy side. Yeah. I wish they would have done that.
Yeah.
But I look at how much love and care they gave to us, how much they provided for us, how much they sacrificed for us and for our school and our community. Mm-hmm. That is what I want to do. And sometimes and my dad was 6'7", 300 pounds, but he was a very gentle man, never really talked much. And there's times when I get animated and I think to myself Dad, am I doing sorry? I don't want to offend you, but I always think about how would my dad handle that?
Yeah.
Because my mom wore the pants in the family. But how can I be more like my dad? Because he was so loving, and did everything for us and quiet, but still effective.
Yeah.
With my mom, as the punisher.
Yeah. Well, that's one thing we have in common. My mother was definitely the one, the disciplinarian of the family. Mm-hmm. Fair. When you look at your life growing up, what's one thing that you miss? Whether it be from city life, once you moved into your college space, or just from small town Ohio, what's one thing that you miss from back in those days?
I loved growing up in Belpre. I wouldn't trade it for the world. It's made me who I am as a person. Yeah. It's a wonderful place to grow up. And I think frankly, sometimes, we, and also Democrats, not to make this political, but Democrats, and also some city folk, we end up demonizing folks in rural America. Is what do you mean you don't want to live in the big city? What do you mean you don't want? And there's nothing wrong with wanting to live in rural Ohio or rural America. It's a wonderful place to grow up. It doesn't mean that you're backwards or have any. These are all great people that are all striving for the same stuff. Yeah. It's a good job that pays well, a good place to send your school, some health, good health care. Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with not wanting to sit in rush hour traffic or to sit by a bonfire and drink some beers and see the stars without light pollution. Those aren't bad things. Right. And so I loved growing up there. But I also loved being in a big city, and having that dichotomy of living in both worlds where there is diversity here and the sense of excitement and there is traffic and there is light pollution. Yeah. And that's all great too. Yeah. How can we, both those worlds are great. But having that as a basis of just a community where I don't want to make it sound like Mayberry, but you did know a lot of people. Yeah. And Columbus is 1 million people and it's still a small town, but it's a lot different than 5,000 people.
Absolutely.
5 stoplights or whatever, and I wouldn't trade it for the world, but there was that sense of safety and security, small town feel, and playing basketball, you go to these gyms in super rural, Belpre was metropolis compared to some of these places we went to, and it was standing room only. There's the only thing going on in town, and it was just the sense of excitement. You'd go in there, and then of course we'd kick everybody's ass. Yeah. And so that was and then we pissed off at Belpre, and but that was what was fun. Is that we'd go in there and we win the title, and but that's what we did, and that was when's the game? What time's the game? When you leaving for the game? And our student section would follow us because that was that sense of community and school pride and friendships. I wouldn't trade that.
Yeah, no, that's awesome, and I think you hit a really key point in that. We are all really striving for the same thing. If it's a dad that's in the city, a dad in the country, a dad in the in-between, right? we're all really looking for the best for our kid, the best for our family. How do we make sure that what we leave behind, right, is a positive space for them, and that world and that adventure where it is.
And we lose sight of that commonality.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's just because of today's times. I don't know if it's because of social media. I don't know why. But we lose sight of the overwhelming commonality that we have as dads, as people, regardless of where you live, regardless of where you grow up. We care about the same things.
Right.
Now, there could be differences, but at the heart, education, jobs, safety and security for our kids, giving them a great place to live. Like at the heart, like that, we all believe in that same thing. And and if we can rally around that commonality, and that's frankly that sense of like Americanism, I think we can get back on track as a society.
Yeah. No, I do not disagree with you there. When you look back over your career, what do you think is an impact that other fathers maybe have seen or have benefited from in the things that you've been able to do? What's been a big impact for you?
Well, I look at when I first joined city council, one of the very first thing I did was we reopened the pools. Mm-hmm. We had tight budget cycles coming in 2010. I joined in 2011 and working with then Mayor Coleman, like, again, looking out for children and kids, giving them something to do instead of having to turn on the fire hydrant. Like, a lot of this, if you remember back then, a lot of the pools were closed. Yeah. Not a lot to do in the summer for our kids. And so like from a dad, I didn't have kids at the time, on my way to having kids at the time. But like from a dad's perspective is like, how can we give safe opportunities with my city hat on? And like an easy answer was like, now that people passed the income tax increase, money was starting to generate, and the fact that the city of Columbus voters were investing in themselves, we had this pot of money. I was like, let's open up the pools for our kids. And then when I chaired Rec and Parks, how can we expand programming for kids of all interests and ages? And we really worked hard to expand programming to give kids those opportunities. And like, I'm really proud of that work, because like that is work that I was able to direct and control as a city leader. Mm-hmm. But I just strive to do my best and try to put myself in other people's shoes. Yeah. And like, what would a family in this neighborhood want, or in this neighborhood want, or why would they be upset if this happened? And sometimes the decisions are tough, but always as your North Star, like doing the right thing for families, because our families are at the heart, and our neighborhoods are at the heart of what makes this city wonderful. And of course, our children are right in the center of that.
That's it. As a father, what's one of the scariest things for you? What would you say is maybe at the heart of what drives you, but like, what's a scary thing in your mind as a dad today?
Well, just the unknown. You drop your kids off every day, and it's just the unknown of that day. Yeah. And it's like, I once heard Barack Obama, say like parenting is this like living with like your heart on your sleeve every day. Yeah. Because you're so exposed, because as your kids get older, you have, every year that goes by is a little less control over your kids until they leave the nest or go to college or enter the workforce or go to the military, whatever they choose to do. And then you're like, did I do my best for my own kids? Which is all you can do, is do your best. I mean, you think about when you had your kids, like how much studying did you do for driver's ed? How much, if you want to be a barber, you got to go through license. You go to college to get a degree. Yeah. You have a baby, they're like, hey, your insurance only pays for 24 hours. Get the hell out of here. and you strap that baby in the back of your car. Yeah. Seriously though. Yeah. And you're driving home and you're like, if the speed limit's 65, you're going like 20, and people are swerving around you. You're like looking in the rearview mirror. Yeah. You're like, what the hell are we going to do? Because there's no book.
There's nothing.
And so like, you're doing all this is the best that you can. Yeah. Like, what did your parents or grandparents treat you, or your friends, or what did you see an uncle do or an aunt do? Yeah. But like, how do you just leave the best for your kids? Yeah. And that's something that I always think about it. Like, am I being the best dad? And I know that I fail a lot, but hopefully I hit more home runs than strikeouts, and just try my best. Yeah. But it's daunting. It's challenging. But you love your kids so much, and you just want to see them succeed. You want them to find their own way and have every opportunity and more than what you had.
Yeah, no, that's fair. That is absolutely fair. And you hit something there that just kind of stood out to me. You failed.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
Right. Like we have moments where we don't get it right.
And that's something like, especially being an elected official where people will say negative things about you. And I've always like tried to tell my kids, like, look, not everyone loves your daddy, you know, and that's just the world that we live in. It's the job that I've chosen at this time. But and I've also told them about loss. Yeah. Is that like some people don't like you. It's life. Sometimes you do something and you lose. I ran an election and lost. Yeah. You know, like you're not going to win everything, but I tried my hardest. Like, so it's like those lessons that you try to instill on your children of just what life lessons are. Not everyone's going to be your friend. Yeah. You know, you're going to try a lot of things and not be successful. You know, those are just life lessons. Did you practice? Did you work hard? You know, those campaigning, did I leave it all on the plate? There's all these analogies, no matter what profession you're in, that you can translate. It just happens to be my translation because what I'm doing as a dad, whatever your translation is that like, there are just those core life lessons that I think that they can see, you know, with their own eyes, and what I live to like lay the blueprint for them of like, this is how you have to, you know, do things. Yeah. If you want to be successful, you got to work hard and then you'll fail. Yeah. But did you practice enough? Did you leave it all on the playing field? Did you, you know, instead of watching TV, you could have been out dribbling or working on your Taekwondo form? Yeah. You know, those are all things that you could have been doing. So don't get frustrated with the world. Get frustrated with yourself first, and ask, did I do everything that I can? Yeah. So that's, you know, just that's how I look at it and how I try to parent sometimes, just through example of my own failures, my own mess ups, and looking back with objective, like how could I have done better, and just being honest with my kids, like I'm not perfect, and you're not going to be perfect either. But you're going to try your hardest. Yeah. You're going to try to be your best. Yeah.
So I've got a question now that you said that. What kind of dad are you on the sideline? Are you the one that's screaming? Or are you the one that's like reserved? Because you talked about your father, but I'm interested.
I basically have a zipper on my mouth.
Really?
Yeah. And that is shaped, I think, because of my parents. Okay. But it's more shaped. I refereed Division I women's college basketball for 20 years. So like I've refereed in the Atlantic 10, the Mid-American, Horizon League, Conference USA, the ACC, the Big East, the American. Like I used to be in the NBA minor league. It was called the G League at the time. Yeah. I've had a lot of people yell at me. Yeah. Yeah. About calls, missed calls. And so like that perspective of just getting your ass handed to you as a referee has shaped how my sideline performance is, because I know how hard coaches, and they're volunteers, by the way. This isn't the NBA. Yeah. You know, volunteer coaches, and I coach. So I coached my daughter 4th, 5th, and 6th grade this past year. My mom's the assistant coach.
Really?
Yes. And then we happened to win all 4 years. Just saying, I'm not keeping track.
Just put it out there.
Yeah. We happened to win all 4 years.
There you go.
Yeah, not keeping track. But then my son, because you start at the school in 4th grade and go to 6th grade for parent coach, and then starting in 7th and 8th grade, they kind of ask parents not to coach so that it's more objective as the kids get better, which is fine. Fair. So then my son in 4th grade this year was like, well, Dad, you going to coach me? And so like I coached both of them this year, which was great. It was fun. But I'm not the stomper or yeller. No, not at all.
Fair. Well, I didn't learn something new, because I didn't know that you're out there coaching all this time.
Well, yeah, I mean, move over, Popovich. I'm coming, you know.
He's coming.
Yeah.
He's coming. That's the next job.
Maybe I'll have a career at Ohio State and I'll go coach.
Yeah. There you go. No, that's awesome though. And I think it's really good to hear someone say the recognition of what others are going through, right? So as a parent, you get out there, you get passionate, you get going. I am probably the more vocal parent. You'd be
who are you
me
vocal to? The coach, the referee, or your
my
kids?
Kid. Okay. No, I'm all in for my kid, right? Unless something crazy happens, and then it might be a little like, hey, can we talk about what just happened over there? But I think it's more or less me pushing Lauren specifically, right? Because she's the one that's out there on the soccer field right now. So it's like pushing her to do more, to be better, let me change that. to be her best.
Yeah, to try her hardest.
And to try her hardest.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like, and not to kind of give up in that moment of like, oh, this was hard, this was difficult, or I got bumped because I am the smallest one on the field, right? And now I'm on the ground trying to figure it out. So kind of coaching her through that process. But it's always interesting to watch the different parents out there, because you're like, he got the dad who's yelling at the ref, and you're like, dude, he is the other parent. Like, his kid's on the other field over there. You know, he's trying to get this done, and you're screaming at him for your 5-year-old, you know, that's out here. So just very interesting.
Well, and if we digress into sports a little bit, because again, I've seen it all just in my experience of refereeing, that if you are coaching your kid on how to play during a game, like, that's not the right time. Like, that it's in between the games and the off season, that if you want to spend time with your child, that's when you coach your kid to get better. Absolutely. But if you're like trying to correct form during the middle of the game, it's like, this is the game. This is where you show all the practicing of your form in the game. Right. Now, there's nothing wrong with saying, like, are you trying your hardest? Yeah. Are you pushing yourselves? Yeah. Why, run harder, go after the loose ball, because those are things that you can control. Yeah. But when it comes to practice, like, I've seen parents like get on their kids about things that, like, well, they need like 10 hours of ball handling a week on this. Like, they're not going to be able to do that crossover right here in the game because they've never practiced it before. Right. So like, spend time with your kid if sports are important to you, which I love sports. Don't take it out during the game. Exactly. And reminding, like, these are 6th grade, 5th grade referees. Right. Take a step back. Take a step back. Yeah. Because Liz is real passionate out here about this. Yeah. Well, and like, frankly, if they were really, excited about being a referee, they'd probably be refereeing Division I college basketball, but they're refereeing 6th grade, and we need 6th grade referees, and that's great. Yeah. But like, remember, like, they're just there to referee the kids' game. Yeah. And Gino RM is not going to be at your kid's 6th grade game, so it's okay. The scouts are not here. The scouts aren't there now. Yeah. Fair. That's absolutely fair. What do you take from your days in refereeing and even coaching into your everyday fatherhood? Like, what are the key things that you feel like you take away that maybe someone else could use in their space? I try to be objective. Okay. Because sometimes my kids will say, "Oh, whose side are you on?" And I'll just say, like, I'm on the right side. Yeah. I'm on, like, what I think is the objective side. I'm not, I'm not picking favorites. That'll get on their nerves a lot too. It really gets on my wife's nerves. But just trying to be objective and fair. Yeah. And also know when to hold them and know when to fold them. Like, you don't have to win every argument. Yeah. And sometimes, like, so like refereeing, like, sometimes coaches are up your tail about a call. You don't have to engage in everything. They can have the last word. It's okay. There's sometimes when you have to give a technical foul and you do have to address it. So like, they'd use the sports analogy. Yeah. Like, you just know when to engage and not to engage. And that's hard. I don't have a perfect, I'm not batting 1,000 here. Yeah. And then just like the patience associated with that, and just in understanding to let things play out. And it's okay if you're just like a duck with water off your back. Like, it's okay. Just let it go. But then be able to address it when you need to. Oh, that's fair. That's absolutely fair. It's interesting to hear you kind of go through that, because I would have thought you'd have been like a well-loved man when it comes to coaching, but you ride the line for your kids specifically. You ride the line, which is fair. That's really awesome to hear. I'd probably not be that person. I'm like, yeah, girl, I don't know what was going on out there. So no, that's really awesome. That's really awesome. So kind of rounding down, like, what do you hope a father will take from listening to you today and hearing you kind of talk about your experience? What do you hope a dad that's listening today takes? I think I would love for that dad to know that he's not alone, that this is a big family of dads that are all trying their hardest, and that there's no right or wrong blueprint of how you can succeed as a father. You do you, and know that you have a lot of support in the community, and that if you want to take the next step and get involved in the community to help better the life of your children, you can. There's plenty of opportunities out there, and so realize those opportunities and don't be afraid to be a dad. Yeah. And I can't stress that enough. I can't define it for each individual dad, but I think each individual knows there's something they could do better or differently, or that they should do more of.
Yeah.
And in that self-assessment on a daily basis of how am I doing as a father, like always go through that checklist, because you can really make a difference in your kids' lives. Kids need dads.
Yeah.
And we have an important role to play. And there's a lot of support out there, and I want to see them succeed as fathers.
Yeah.
Because our kids deserve it, and they deserve it as a dad.
Yeah. There's a lot of fun in being a dad.
There is a lot of heartache too.
Yeah.
It's hard. It's hard being a parent.
Yeah. That's true. Mm-hmm. That's very true. There's ups, there's downs, but I think we get so distracted at times by the negativity.
Mm-hmm.
We get so thrown off on like, oh, the failures, right? I didn't do this. I didn't get that. But to be able to take a moment and recognize exactly what you said, like there's a lot of necessity for you as a father
mm-hmm.
in that room, right? Especially when that child doesn't know what the next step is, especially when they're trying to figure out, when they're falling down on the basketball court.
And you don't have to be everything to your child.
That's
you
true.
Just have to be their dad.
Yeah.
And I know that like may sound, but when you think about it,
yeah,
like you're not going to have all the answers.
Yeah.
Sometimes just being present is the answer.
Yeah.
You don't have to always dish out some sage piece of advice.
Yeah.
Because Lord knows I don't have it. But I can give you a hug, and I can tell you like that I love you, help guide you through it. And then sometimes I may have some advice, and that's okay too.
Yeah.
But you don't have to be everything all the time.
Right.
You just got to be there.
Okay. Yeah. Well, on that, I appreciate you.
I appreciate
Thank you so much for coming out. I know
you're a
schedule.
great dad.
Well, listen, I try.
I know you're a great dad.
I appreciate
because I know
that.
you.
I appreciate that a lot.
Your kids are lucky.
Listen, don't get me all emotional on the thing.
I'm serious.
But I appreciate it. No, truly. I do truly appreciate that. And I will say right back at you, because I've always watched you with Stella. I've always seen like the pictures and all, but more specifically with Stella because she was little back when we were doing a lot of things. And to see you bring her out and go and be a dad first, that's the one thing that I love that you said today, right? Is like, I've watched you do that. It's not just a speech, right? It's not just a thing to say. You've literally had her everywhere. And Rocco, as he's come along, right, to be there to see the amazing father that you are. But also, it's really cool to hear you talk about your dad and to see you and not knowing your father as much. I've seen so much of him in you and what I've seen you do. So it's just amazing to see you.
I just hope that
today.
I'm half as good a dad as my dad was to me.
Listen, from my vantage point, you've done a phenomenal job.
Thank you.
Done a phenomenal job.
Appreciate you having me.
I appreciate you. Thank you for being here. Thank you all for watching. Thank you for being a part of this process. This is season 2, so please take a moment to go through, watch all the dads that you can. If you're a father watching this right now, we're here for you. We're here with you. And feel free to reach out for free to shoot a comment, a question. We'll definitely get that answered as much as possible, but also just to be here to support you throughout. Thank you for being a part of it. We'll see you next time.